Hi, Grace. Hi, Emma. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Ian. Hello.
Great, thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Excellent. Shall we start with some intros? Emma, do you want to go first and tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Emma Jackson. I'm Head of Legal Technology and Data at Mills Reeve. I've been at the firm for 20 years, which is actually quite a long time, I realise now. And I've been working with Fliplet since 2019. So around 2018, I set up the client innovation team, and we created our first app in 2019. But I'll let Grace introduce herself first before we get into it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace McWilliam. I'm technology consultant team leader for Mills and Reeve. I've been with the firm for 7 years and have been app lead for the firm for maybe the past 4 or so years. So quite close to a lot of the app builds that go on.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. And thanks for joining me today. I'm excited by our conversation. So how did you get started with Fliplet?
So it was in 2019, we were having a partner business day and we were giving them an update on the newly formed client innovation team and the technologies that we looked after and what we did as a team. One of the big issues at that point, it feels quite a long time ago now, but one of the big issues at that point was actually getting information about technology into their minds and hands. And a lot of that meant that they actually needed to phone me or one of the other team at the time and speak to us and ask us questions. That is quite time consuming when you are looking at that. So we actually decided we were going to do some kind of app. And it was going to be a sort of technology guidance app, and we called it What the Tech. We went out and looked for we looked at all the options we could find, and the only one really that fitted the bill was Fliplet. So we created this app, which Grace is kindly sharing on the screen for you. It's had a couple of facelifts since. It's probably due another one in the not too distant future. But it's called What the Tech. It has two sort of main routes. There's a list of technologies. So if people have heard of Fliplet, they could go and find the Fliplet page and see the information about it. But there's also a decision tree element. So I would like to create a visual diagram or communicate, and that will route people through a series of questions, which then takes them to the right technology. And we launched this at the Partner Business Day, which was only 2 weeks after we decided we were going to do it. And it was built by myself and one of our grad apprentices in a fortnight. And we launched it at the Partner Business Day. It was on all of their phones the morning of go live.
That is a very impressive time frame. So quick question on that time frame. Is that the time frame you set with the organization when they say, "Oh, we'd like a new app"? Do you say, "Yeah, no problem, 2 weeks"?
Yeah, 2 weeks. No, we definitely don't. I think we've only done one other app that was around that time frame. All of the others have taken a little bit longer.
Just a smidge.
A smidge. Some of them are considerable amount longer. But yeah, it's not a standard we set ourselves. But it was one of the main reasons that we went with Fliplet was because we could do it in a rapid delivery. We could do it ourselves. It was very well received to the point that we were then inundated with requests for apps.
Fantastic. So you touched on the speed element was one of the key reasons why you chose Fliplet, and it sounds like you and a colleague were able to pretty much do it on your own. What were the other things that I guess if you hadn't have used Fliplet, how do you think you would have delivered it? Why would you have not wanted to use them? And ultimately then, why did you decide to bring a new piece of technology into the firm?
It was quite a tricky decision to begin with because we looked at lots of different options and we didn't actually have any that would do what we wanted to. So we wanted it to be on the partners' phones. We wanted it to be in their pocket so that when they get into the back of a taxi on the way to a client and they know that they're going to have to talk about technology, we want them to be able to actually do that. And it was quite a challenge with everything else. I mean, we've got lots of other technologies that we use for client portals and things like that, but none of them lent it the same way. We also have a full IT development team, but it's not that is not as quick as something that me and a grad can configure and put together in an easy sort of low code environment.
So you delivered this app in 2 weeks, and then you said you received a stack of other app suggestions, ideas. So what did you do? What did you do next?
So the next app we built was in early 2020, which, if you cast your minds back, you will remember were very different times due to COVID. And we do an awful lot of work in the health sector, but we also do private client. I mean, we're a full service firm. And we actually decided to create an app aimed at our health sector. I would say clients, but it wasn't really clients. It was just anybody who worked for them, around how to sort their affairs out and get things in order should the worst happen. So we actually created an app called Live Questions. The nicest, I mean, it's I say nice. It's obviously, it's not a nice reason to create an app, but we did break our own record. We did this one in less than a week. So this is a web app that we set up for all of our, it went to every single healthcare provider that we had connections with, nurses, doctors, anybody who was working sort of frontline at the time, was able to go on here and get a template will, do a power of attorney, appoint guardians for their children. And if they needed further advice, we didn't point them back to Mills Reeve. We pointed them to the Law Society to get a local solicitor to help them if it was more complex than the basic package. It wasn't about marketing. It wasn't about trying to get more clients. It was all actually about what we could do to help. And if we hadn't had Fliplet in our stack, we never could have done that. And we certainly couldn't have done it in the same time frame. And it was something that me and the team, it was a bit of a passion project for us at the time. Everyone did long days and lots of testing. But the idea was given to us on a Monday and the app was out with NHS by Friday.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
Amazing. That's amazing. So, I mean, do you go around promoting to your colleagues that, we can deliver apps in a week?
Absolutely not. No way. And we've got a lot more process around it now as well than we did back in 2019, 2020.
Just so the audience isn't completely misled. So what would you say is a more realistic time frame? If I worked at Mills Reeve and I asked you, could you help build an app? What's the typical time frame you say?
It absolutely depends on whether or not they've got the content ready. But I would say it's a month to 6 weeks.
Okay. It's still pretty quick then.
It's still pretty quick, yeah. Some of them do take longer. Don't get me wrong. That is a very average time frame.
Yeah.
And it can take a while to get through the app stores.
Yes. Yeah, they're fun.
They are.
So what are the key features what are the key features you've been using from Fliplet the most?
Grace will be able to tell you more about those in a minute, but I think the one that we were drawn to primarily that we used in both of those first two apps was decision trees, and just being able to route people to the right information. It's been absolutely fundamental. It's one of the things that we've used in nearly every app we've created, to more or lesser degrees. There's always been some kind of decision-led route to get to the information. But Grace, do you want to?
Well, a few of the features that sort of matter the most to us, really. One is sharing documents to different audiences via web apps. That's been a really important feature for us. So we do have lots of different tools actually internally to be able to serve documents and to share documents, but actually the flexibility that Fliplet provides is quite important to us. So one example was we needed a way to serve injunction proceedings to persons known and persons unknown, which is actually rather tricky to do if you don't have an email address, or even know what the names of these individuals are. So we were able to serve those papers, injunction proceedings, and a lot of evidence, including sort of videos, documents, multimedia evidence via a QR code, which took them to the web app, so they could access all of those documents in one place. So that was a good one. Providing a contracts portal to one of our clients via a web app as well. So the requirements there was that they've got employees in over 100 countries spread globally. So they had to be able to access a series of contract documents and the guidance notes to support those. And we can go into more detail on sort of why we ended up choosing Fliplet on that. But that was a really flexible solution for us and meant that we were able to retender for that client and offer that contracts portal. And then a good other one, they're quite diverse examples really, but another one is client training. So we had a quick message from some lawyers, probably earlier in the year or maybe last year, but they run quite regular employment tribunal training sessions for clients. And with that, you need sort of mock bundles of documents, mock witness statements, mock judgments, different documents that would typically be printed out. That they quickly came to us and just said, is there a greener way to do this? We don't want to print out lots of documents for this training session. So we quickly popped it onto a web app, so the participants could scan a QR code, access all of the documents in one place, and we've been able to template that for future mock employment tribunals. And I think we've saved about 10,000 sheets of paper, I think, over the past year or so, just in mock ET web apps alone. So that was quite a good example. But sharing documents is a really important one for us.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I'm sure the trees are very happy that you've taken that route. And a bit of a follow-on question, because some of those features maybe sound technical, but some of those features sound less technical, like maybe uploading a set of documents. Are you able, like, is everybody who's involved in these apps and the creation of these features technical, or is it non-technical? Like, who's building and who's maintaining these apps?
It tends to be a bit of a mixture. So the legal technology team that Emma and I sit within are the ones who do the building of the apps. There's quite a few sort of other stakeholders that we bring in to the app development process to make sure that we're sort of adhering to security and thinking about risk and sort of integrating with our wider technology strategy roadmap. But once the app is developed, it's very much an ongoing relationship. So any development work tends to sit with the legal technology team, but actually some of our apps we've completely handed over to the teams who needed them in the first place. So our events app, for example, our events team completely manage that app now. We check in with them on a quarterly basis just to make sure that it's running as expected and if they need any support, but they completely look after the running of that app now. So it just depends. We tend to try and hand the apps back to the teams who need them once they're up and live, but it's the legal technology team who are always sort of happy to help with any further development. But it's a bit of a mixture, really. So
it sounds like you guys get to do all the fun stuff, and then the boring, repetitive stuff you hand over to your colleagues. Have I interpreted that correctly?
It's not quite, Ian, but maybe we do enjoy a build.
So you mentioned that you think you've saved about 10,000 sheets of paper with the Tribunal Save training app. Do you have any other key results from your apps that have kind of given you confidence that the apps are effective?
Yes. So, well, one of the features that we had to have for the contracts portal as well was being able to configure SSO to deliver their solution. So they needed to be able to use SSO to validate against their own AD to manage new joiners and leavers and make sure that it wasn't just a manual nightmare for us to have to manage adding or removing people. I will just share my screen very quickly actually on the contracts portal, because there's a few other features on there that meant that we had quite a good result from this app. So this was a sort of list of requirements on their retender for us to be able to deliver their legal work. So we had to be able to, as I mentioned, offer the SSO because they had employees in over 100 countries needing to access. It needed to be a document repository. They needed the ability to preview and download legal documents. They wanted to be able to track who was accessing the documents, which were the most popular, search terms that were being looked for. Risk assessment functionality, there was some decision tree requirement functionality in there as well, but everything on the sort of tender that we had for the requirements for this contracts portal, we were able to hit using Fliplet, but we wouldn't have been able to do it with any of our other technology solutions that we had available. So that was a really good outcome for us, that we were able to deliver this portal and continue to work for our clients.
Sounds amazing. Sounds like you've definitely won kind of hopefully a loyal client through this this contracts portal. It sounds very sophisticated. Roughly how many documents are in it, just to gain an understanding of kind of the scope?
So each contract has got 3 documents associated with it. So we've got roughly about 100 screens that is part of the app. So it's probably well over sort of 100, 200 documents on there, but over the course of maybe 70 different contract types that they need to be able to have access to.
So it's very extensive.
Yes, yeah. Well, recently we have to do quarterly updates for our client. That's part of the relationship, as they want to see how the web app is being integrated with, how the contracts portal is being used. And the latest count for the last quarter was that we had 20,000 interactions with that web app. So it is really, really well used.
That is very impressive. And this is a web app only. This is not available on mobile?
Yeah, web app only. We did look into having it available on mobile, but because they've got so many employees in so many different countries, not all of them have access to sort of mobile apps and things. So we kept it as a web app, and it's worked really well for them. Plus, tricky to see contracts on a mobile screen, I think. So web apps sometimes the best solution.
I definitely was half expecting you to say, yeah, you know, this isn't going to be that effective on a small screen. So, but I know sometimes the temptation is like, well, we can put it on mobile, and maybe they do want it occasionally on mobile. So that's why I thought I'd just double check. So these apps that you've been talking about, the training app, the live questions, the what the tech, and the contracts portal sound amazing. And you've been very gracious in sharing some of the performance data. Have you received any qualitative feedback from users about the apps?
Well, What the Tech did win Knowledge Management Innovation Award back in, was it 2022, Grace? I think it was, which was one of my proudest moments. It's like when your child gets an award at school. But yeah, it was fantastic. It's been really well received, and we have talked about What the Tech a lot. We do get a lot of feedback from new joiners as well, who say that they think it's fantastic, especially when they've come from other law firms who haven't got that kind of thing. But I think they like the branding of it as well, to be honest.
That sounds amazing.
And Grace, you hear good things about all of the more recent apps as well, regularly.
Yeah, we had one, again, sharing documents. So it was the one where we had to share the injunction proceedings to persons known and persons unknown. The judge actually ruled that web app be used as the source of truth for all court hearings. So that was a bit of a win, in that the judge liked the solution so much that he said that should be how we serve all of the documents.
Wow, it sounds like everything you guys have done has just resulted in people winning. So what are the main lessons that you have learnt through your various apps and various features that you're using?
I would say that we need to follow processes. It's very easy for me to get caught up in the initial idea, and I just want to go and build it because I can. And there's also Grace has done an awful lot of work on actually building an app design process. So we have to check in with insurance, and we have to check in with our risk team, and we have to make sure that it's the right thing to do in the first place. Whereas I'm much more of an ask forgiveness rather than permission kind of developer. So I have to make sure that I follow the processes. But I'd also say the other big thing that I've learned through the whole is just to get started. do make something, you will have to iterate it, you will have to change it. It won't be right first time, but people's imagination grows when they can see it physically. Whereas talking about apps sort of in theory, they can't sometimes always see what you actually want them to see. Whereas if you give them something that they can click around and actually have a look at, you end up with much more developed ideas as it goes on with the different iterations.
And I think you mentioned when we were chatting earlier that you sometimes do live changes with lawyers on the call or in the room.
We do, yeah. So we do.
We've learned to do that, Ian. It's an interesting one, and actually you speaking about Fliplet Studio version 3 will absolutely help this out. But we've had building experiences in the past where stakeholders have maybe requested a change, and it seems like quite a minor change because it may be sort of the placement of a logo or some wording that features on each screen. I say it seems like a simple change, but the way that Fliplet works in terms of developing content onto individual screens, we do have to make that change numerous times. So for example, with the contracts portal, if we have over 100 screens, it's actually changing things 100 different times. So I think it's quite important, and it's definitely a lesson learned for us to make stakeholders aware of how Studio actually works, and maybe share your screen and just show them that we are building in a live environment. Obviously we need to publish any updates, but any changes that we're making are being made to the web app as we go through an iterative approach. So I'd really try and agree on a sort of finalized look, content, etc. before building every single screen and then having to go back and change the logo position 100 times. So just bearing in mind that people may not know how Fliplet Studio works, and keeping them in the loop really, and maybe sharing screen just so they have an appreciation of how it's developed, and that tiny change may not be so much of a tiny change if you've got to do it 100 times.
Yes, I was very much thinking of you, Grace, as I was saying that point in my presentation. I thought, well, I imagine that anybody who really has extensive existing apps, and then somebody comes along and says, you know, I'd really like to make an upgrade this year. And you're thinking, no, I don't want to make an upgrade this year. I like the way it is. I don't want to have to change 100 screens. So yeah, I think obviously AI will bring about a bunch of new opportunities and probably a bunch of challenges as well that will hopefully solve some things and no doubt have some other issues. What are your future plans then?
We will keep making more apps. Rumour mills spread, and then now that we've done the injunction app, if we have to do that again, it is likely that we will, we'll be able to template that and use that time and time again. There's also variations on our existing apps. So we're actually looking at ways of adapting some of the apps that we've got for different sectors. So as well as completely new apps, some of which won't have even been thought of yet, there'll also be variations on the ones that we've spent an awful lot of time working on. We are also going to do what the tech, I think it'll be about V5, where we'll give it a new facelift, and all of the stuff that we've just seen in Fliplet Studio version 3 looks really handy, and I'm almost definitely rebuilding it completely. But yeah, all of the AI stuff has been fantastic. We have actually had some service time, and we did, use AI generated content, and it was fantastic. Grace, you've been involved in that more than I have, but I know it's been really well received.
It was great. It cut down the development time quite considerably, and the client were really pleased that we were able to do that for them. So that was really helpful.
That's excellent. Do you have any other kind of thoughts or plans around how you anticipate specifically using the AI feature, or AI features, I should say?
It'll definitely help me with Studio. And we would also like to look at doing some kind of chatbot AI type front end to What the Tech as well. Not to replace necessarily my beloved decision tree functionality, but also to add to it. So I think there's definitely things there. And we do, as you will be aware, Ian, we do get quite a lot of accessibility requests. So if we can use it to help us with that as well going forward, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that you'll definitely be able to use it for accessibility. In the test that I ran earlier today, I was blown away. It was basically educating me on web content accessibility guidelines and saying like, well, if you want to meet this, you need to make these changes. And I was like, yep, let's just do them all.
It's amazing. It'll save us hours, definitely.
Yeah. And are there any key messages or suggestions or tips that you would share with people who are, say, earlier in their Fliplet journey, maybe just getting started with building out software or apps with it?
I'd say definitely get your theme, appearance, and consistency and sort of headings and styles and things sorted before you get started, just to make sure you haven't got to go and make that change numerous times, although version 3 will help with that. And then also continue that engagement with your stakeholders. So even after we've developed the app and sort of technically handed it back to the stakeholder team, we still conduct quarterly audits just to make sure that the content is all up to date and make sure that the stakeholders are happy with what's on there and the information that we're sharing externally via apps and web apps. And then I'd also just include in that audit as well, just having a little check on Google and Apple stores that your app is on there and working as expected. It's always helpful to just keep an eye on that because they do love to change a rule from time to time. So it's always good to just keep on top of it.
You mentioned that you do periodic audits. What do you include in those audits? What are the aspects other than the App Store check that you mentioned? What are the other? Are there standard elements you include, or is it different for every app?
It's different for every app, although it tends to mostly be content reviews. So we do, well, it's twofold really, in the content reviews. So if there's legal content on the apps, we need to make sure that it's up to date and that we're not sort of providing inaccurate information. And then also we have a mini team within the legal technology department who actually just go through and hit the buttons on the apps just to make sure the links aren't broken. Some things drop out if links expire or we need to swap them over. So just checking through things like that really just to make sure that it all works as expected, the content is up to date, and then just double checking that it's available on the App Store.
No, it sounds like a great process. I have one final question, which is, I know you mentioned earlier on that you have a process for determining new apps, looking at insurance and risk and other elements. And then we were talking a bit about AI. How are you seeing the risk of AI? How is either the firm or how are you applying that process when you think about apps?
When we think about apps, we will probably have to adapt our process slightly the more we start to use it. We are obviously, as a law firm, we're very much client driven. And some of our clients are very happy to embrace AI and some of them are less so happy to embrace AI. And some of them actually tell us that we can't use AI for certain things. So we are looking at it from multiple different angles. We will need to make sure that we add a step about that into the sort of risk and compliance view. The whole process itself, I mean, Grace, it's a masterpiece, but Grace did all of the hard work on this bit. But it's around the actual business case for the app in the first place. It's checking with insurers, checking with risk. It's checking that the content's going to be monitored, who's going to own it, who's actually going to do the work. It's all the way through, and then it's post-app go live as well. So we will have to make sure that the steps in there. But as a firm, we do use AI in some elements. We're trialing lots of things. We have seen lots and lots of demos, and we're taking it as each day as it comes at the moment because it changes so often.
It does. It changes very fast. Well, thank you so much, Emma and Grace, for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time to prepare and participate in Fliplet Summit. I'm sure that our customers who are on today's webinar and the people that watch the recording really appreciate you taking your time. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks, Ian.